Hi everyone, I'm Bubby Peggy, and today I would like to revisit the first of the 10 Commandments, which to me would be better known as the 10 principles by which we could live our lives. It says, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You are to have no other gods before me. Before me is acharim al panai, which means preferred. Do not prefer any other gods. Now I was wondering, if I had to stand up in front of an audience and describe myself in 2 sentences, what would I say? Here the Creator is speaking to millions of people, both Israelites and non-Israelites, the heir of Rav, who stood at the base of Mount Sinai. He begins with the word Anochi, which is much stronger than Ani, I am, but Anochi alludes to me in full existence, a complete Ani, total self-contained being. Hebrew paints beautiful pictures which can never be translated into any other language. The Hebrew word Anochi, the root, is Anoch, and it's a plumb line used in construction, ensuring that everything that's built comes out straight, justified, and centered, the way our lives need to be. This plumb line is called Anach. I love that. The Creator's words, his 10 commandments, are like a plumb line in our lives. Now, the first commandment depicts what the Borei Olam did for us. He didn't define himself or explain himself. He described what he did as an historical figure. He spoke about what he did for the people at that time and what he expected from them. Later on in the Torah, we learn from Moshe that the Creator wasn't only speaking to the people standing there then, but to us who would come later. That's you and me. He already had us in mind. Now let's look at who these people were at the base 4,000 years ago. They had just left the country where they had been very welcome at first. That was during the time of Joseph. He had saved Egypt from the 7 years of famine. Then after living in Egypt for over 200 years, why did they still stay there? Why didn't they go back to the home where Jacob had lived before coming to Egypt? The Israelites had become very comfortable, but they were getting involved in the pagan practices of the Egyptians, and they were forgetting the God of their fathers. Does that sound familiar? Our lives can become very comfortable in a foreign environment, and it's easy to assimilate into surrounding culture. The Torah tells us that a Pharaoh arose who didn't know Joseph, or maybe this very proud king didn't want to know that a Hebrew was so involved, so important in the history of the Egyptian people. So he began to make our lives, their lives, miserable. That's when they became uncomfortable. Isn't that when we usually cry out to God for help? Certainly not when things are going well. Things got worse and worse for our people as they were forced into slavery until the time that Moshe, who was being prepared, would come and lead them out. Did they want to leave? The Torah doesn't tell us, but it seems that they just wanted to go back to the way things were. But God had another plan for them. He was going to prepare this very small nation to be his emissaries, not only to live these 10 commandments, but to bring them to all the nations of the world. That was their job. That is our job. It was so that they could be or legoyim, a light to the nations. It wasn't that the Israelites were better or more numerous or higher in status than any other nation. Quite the opposite. They were the smallest, but they were God's messengers. And how often does the messenger get shot? The Creator told Moshe that he was going to bring us out of Egypt, and he kept his word. That's how he introduced himself. I am the God who brought you out of the land of Egypt. He was showing us that we could trust his words, that he keeps his promise, that he is a God who plays a vital role in the life of his people, a God of history. Was there any other nation who could say that about their gods? That's why he said, "You shall not prefer any other gods over me." He was also showing us how important it is to keep our word. When we promise something, let's be sure to follow up and do it, or don't make a promise. You heard the expression, bli neder. That's how people can lose trust in us. Now there's a song that we sing at Pesach in remembrance of that day when Pharaoh finally set us free. It goes, Avadim hayinu, hayinu, ata b'nei chorin, b'nei chorin. Avadim hayinu, ata b'nei chorin. Avadim hayinu, ata b'nei chorin, b'nei chorin. Ata b'nei chorin, b'nei chorin. It means once we were slaves, but now we are free. We are sons and daughters of freedom. That's something that goes deep within our soul. Our spirit longs to be free. We saw that from the young people who fought for freedom at the Warsaw Ghetto, during the Holocaust, where people lived in the woods, preferring to freeze and starve instead of being locked up, waiting to be annihilated. Now, I worked for many years with the elderly, and I met these people, and they survived in the woods, running from Hitler. Freedom from slavery does not only mean physical freedom, it also means spiritual freedom, freedom of the soul. Hitler tried to kill the soul of our people, but within our soul, our neshama, lies the spirit of the Creator. He breathed his breath, his ruach, into us, and no one can wipe that out. In Hebrew, the word for freedom is cherut, and acharayut means responsibility. With freedom comes responsibility, but that's for another day. Have a wonderful day, and if you like my videos, please be sure to subscribe, forward them to your friends, and I'll see you next time when we revisit the commandment number 2.